Hmm. Okay, it is time for today's tax talk. It is Tuesday, June 7th, the year of our Lord 2022. We've been talking a lot about regulating cryptocurrency. Usually before the show, I'll go to, I'll Google crypto or blockchain to find out what the latest news is. And there was some latest news. The latest news is there's some regulation coming. And that's what we're going to talk about today on today's Tax Talk. Sure, it looks easy. So anyway, we've been through the last couple of months. We've been talking about all of the regulation. Everybody's fighting about who's going to regulate what. The SEC wants to regulate it. The commodities futures board wants to regulate it. Everybody wants to regulate crypto. They see the big money coming in. Who's going to? So there's a big fight over who's going to regulate what, and so that's what we're going to talk about today. There's a good article about it, but before, like we always do on this show, before we get into that, let's talk about the market, the crypto market, as we always do, is coinflip.tech. We always go to coinflip.tech for our crypto news. Here it is. Market's kind of flat for the day. Looks like Ethereum's down almost 3%, so that's not really flat, is it? But not too bad. Let's look at what happened this is Bitcoin over the last 7 days, last time we were together. A little bit down, kind of treading water there, kind of a little bit down. We're still looking for the big, here's Ethereum, and it's down also. They kind of mirror each other over and over again, kind of looks like that. It's what happens. So here's our story. Bipartisan, here on CNBC, bipartisan crypto regulatory overhaul would treat most digital assets as commodities under the CFTC oversight. So I'm not going to get into these key points because we're going to read the whole story. And here's our two senators who are handing us these regulations. The senators, Gillibrand and Loomis, introduced the first major bipartisan legislation aimed at taming the Wild West crypto market on Tuesday that would clarify or classify digital assets as commodities like wheat or oil and empower the Commodity Futures Trading Commission to rein in the nascent industry. Gillibrand, a Democrat from New York who sits on the Senate Agriculture Committee, and Loomis, a first-term Republican from Wyoming on the Banking Committee, said the Responsible Financial Innovation Act, I love the way they come up with these names, Responsible Financial Innovation Act, is a culmination of months of collaboration in the House and Senate and represents a critical first attempt to structure the markets for digital assets with long-awaited legal definitions. Their office touted the bill as a landmark bipartisan legislation that will create a complete regulatory framework for digital assets that encourages responsible financial innovation, flexibility, transparency, and robust consumer protections while integrating digital assets into existing laws. That kind of sounds scary to me. Does that sound scary to you? A regulatory, it's just huge. The cornerstone of the legislation is how it defines the vast number of digital assets available to the American investors and consumers. With few exceptions, the bill designates digital currencies as ancillary assets or intangible, fungible assets that are offered or sold in tandem with a purchase and sale of a security. Those ancillary assets would be treated like commodities under U.S. law and fall under the jurisdiction of the CFTC. Aides to the senators said that the proposed law treats all digital assets as ancillary unless they behave like a security a corporation would issue to investors to build capital. Cryptocurrencies and other digital coins won't be treated like traditional securities under the Securities and Exchange Commission's scrutiny unless the holder is entitled to privilege enjoyed by corporate investors like dividends, liquidation rights, and financial interest in the issuer, the aides told reporters. While staffers described the bill as a mix of input from politicians on both sides of the political aisle, they acknowledge its size and complexity would force lawmakers to break it up and attempt to pass it in components piece by piece. Well, maybe that's a good thing, right? These big bills are just, they're so large nobody ever reads them. Nobody knows what's going on with them, and nobody has any hearings. So if you do it in pieces, maybe they'll have some hearings. Maybe we could debate it. Maybe we can come up with some good laws. Maybe people who vote on it will actually have read it. That would be a good thing, wouldn't it? They added that the bill is a product of months of discussion with fellow senators, including Republicans such as Minority Leader Mitch McConnell and Pat Toomey, as well as Democrats like Ron Wyden. My home state of Wyoming has gone to great lengths to lead the nation in digital asset regulation. I don't know if that's a good thing or not. And I want to bring that success to the federal level, the success of regulating. I think the federal government's pretty darn good at that. As this industry continues to grow, it is critical that Congress carefully crafts legislation that promotes innovation while protecting the consumer against bad actors. Gillibrand said their bill will provide clarity to both industry and regulators while also maintaining the flexibility to account for an ongoing evolution of the digital assets market. The CFTC and SEC together regulate wide swaths of the U.S. markets and act as two powerful Wall Street watchdogs. The former oversees the purchase and sale of raw commodities like corn, coffee, gold, and oil, while the latter polices companies, executives, and securities that seek to raise capital from the public. In part, it's because the securities regulatory regime is so prescriptive. He said, there's a focus on all of these technical elements of the regime around reporting and trading and other things that are not directly tied to fraud. The belief is that the CFTC would be much more appropriate to focus on investor protection and anti-fraud and anti-market manipulation type issues rather than these very technical prescriptive elements of the current securities laws or regimes. Aides for both senators touted key features of the bill in a call with reporters, including certain tax exemptions that would shield stablecoin holders from having to report income changes each time they make a purchase with digital currency. That would go a long way, wouldn't it? Not to have to report every transaction as a taxable event. Maybe not just stablecoins. Maybe crypto would be the same. Maybe with Ethereum and Bitcoin, maybe that would be a step in the right direction. Other new disclosures would inform investors about issuers' experience developing digital assets, the price history of issuers' prior assets, anticipated costs, and descriptions of the management teams and liabilities of each issuer. Sounds like the money that they spend on lobbying has put some protections in for the actors that are already there. It's always the actors that are already there that want to stop others. Hey, how much experience? You don't have any experience. You shouldn't be doing it. Only I can do it. And that's a problem, especially with an industry like this, which innovation is key. While it is up to Congress to decide how government agencies police U.S. markets, the SEC and its chairman had for more than a year led the public crusade, I don't like that word, crusade, in support of tighter crypto rules. Maybe that's why he's not getting it. Currently, we just don't have enough investor protection in crypto finance, issuance, trading, or lending. Frankly, at this time, it's more like the Wild West or the old world of buyer beware that existed before the securities laws were enacted. Representatives of the senators said that they worked with the SEC on their plan and spent weeks trying to remedy concerns voiced by regulators' attorneys that the legislation would cede too much power. Ultimately, the senators decided it best to grant more authority to the CFTC. They also said the fees collected from digital asset issuers would play an important role in augmenting the CFTC's budget to take on what's expected to be a deluge of regulatory oversight. I don't like that deluge of regulatory oversight. Asked for comment, the CFTC spokesman confirmed the commission provided the senators with technical assistance and referred CNBC to the February statement made by the chairman. I believe many of the CFTC's regulatory principles that have made the U.S. derivatives markets the strongest in the world can also serve to aggressively address many of the risks of digital assets, he said at the time. The continued emergence of digital asset technology presents risks and opportunities, and the CFTC stands ready to leverage its expertise and experience to confront both. The SEC did not respond to CNBC's request for comment. Something to hide. Input from both agencies is critical to the legal debate in the U.S. on how to define cryptocurrencies and other digital assets. The Senator's bills, for example, defines digital asset as a natively electronic asset that confers economic or proprietary access rights or powers to and includes virtual currency and payment stablecoins. It later defines virtual currency as a digital asset that is used primarily as a medium of exchange, unit of account, or a store of value, and is not backed by any underlying financial asset. The industry has hired more than 200 officials and staff from the White House, Congress, Federal Reserve, and political campaigns. I guess the money they spent is working, according to the Tech Transparency Project. Meanwhile, the crypto executives have contributed more than $30 million, there it is, toward federal candidates and campaigns since the start of the 2020 election cycle. It's not surprising to see senators propose relatively light regulation for the crypto industry after investors and executives poured that much into campaigns, said Dennis, a co-founder of Better Markets, a prominent financial reform advocacy group. He says that he served on President Biden's transition team, said that the handing crypto regulation to CFTC is a deliberate attempt to shove responsibility onto an agency that Congress has left without resources for years. Kind of like, that's what they say about the IRS. They say they don't have any resources, but they're giving more power and more to do. He said the legislation, in effect, deregulates crypto because the CFTC isn't equipped to regulate the complex and fast-growing sector. Actually, in my view, it's much worse because it's designed to make the public think it's regulating crypto. The CFTC is the smallest financial regulator with the smallest budget. Wall Street and its allies in Congress have made sure the CFTC has been chronically underfunded for years, making it impossible for the CFTC to even fulfill its current responsibilities. As I said with the IRS, same thing. Funny, every agency says that they're underfunded and need more money. The senators want to work with their peers to develop their prospective states into blockchain and crypto havens. In Empire State, New York City Mayor Eric Adams invested his early paychecks in Bitcoin and Ether, while U.S. Representative Torres, a Democrat representative Bronx, said in March that his city should and must embrace crypto if it is to remain the financial capital of the world. Wyoming, meanwhile, edited its laws in 2019 to create a novel type of bank charter called a Special Purpose Depository Institution to accommodate crypto startups and trading platforms, and remains on an aggressive track to diversify into finance and away from old-school industries like coal and gas. Left unregulated by the CFTC, he says that the crypto market could grow into a larger systematic risk. Giving the CFTC jurisdiction over crypto is like New York City outsourcing crime fighting to a small town police force. You might see a cop every now and then, but by and large, the criminals are going to be running the place. Isn't that already happening? Doesn't that already happen already everywhere? Just amazing to me. So anyway, that's where we are. I thought it was an interesting article. I have another article I wanted to read, but I'm not going to get to it. Bitcoin, Ethereum, and dozens of others to be classified as commodities, according to new crypto legislation. That's the headline. So you can find that. It's in the description here of the video. So thanks so much for joining us. Remember now, if you're trying to fight the IRS, first I'm going to ask you to like and subscribe. Like and subscribe our content. We need to get it out there. We need your help to do so. So please like and subscribe. We need to do that. Next, if you're fighting the IRS, what you should do, if you know if you have IRS problems, you know if you owe the IRS money, you know if you haven't filed in some time. So what's the first thing you should do if you haven't filed or you have some IRS problem? Get a copy of my book, Deal with Your IRS Problem Today. Go to freeirsbook.com, freeirsbook.com. Go to freeirsbook.com, get your free copy. We will ask you to pay a small amount for shipping and handling, unless you want just an electronic copy. If you just want an electronic copy, go there. Don't pay anything. I'll get the contact information and I'll send you to the membership of our site that has the electronic on there. So do that. Again, thanks so much for joining us. I am your host. I'm Attorney Stephen Leahy, and we'll see you again tomorrow, I hope.